Hi, this is Stu Dalton. I'm going to show how to prune a standard or tree rose. This is one right here. This is an Olympiad, named for the '84 Olympics. You can see it's still blooming. This is middle of November. Normally I'd be doing this in January. So the first thing I'm going to do on this is cut off some of the extras. Now I'm wearing protective gear, gauntlets, gauntlet gloves, have a nice sharp shears. I'm going to wear my goggles so that I don't get hit in the eye, and I have a heavy shirt on and heavy pants. You don't want to get hit with the thorns. So I've got some nice long-stemmed roses here. Cut them, put them in water down here, and this is actually not pruning per se. This is just cutting some roses that are available right this moment, and I'll worry about getting those all cleaned up later. But it's amazing how much these have grown. This is all growth. This 3-foot section is all growth since the last pruning, which was about the end of September. And you can see that in most cases that looks like about 2 to 3 feet of new rows since the last pruning. So I will finish that up, and then I'll show you what I'll do next. Those are about the main ones that are on this rose. There's something back here that I wasn't going to show right today for pruning. So this rose has a few very tall shoots that have grown over the last couple of months. I'm going to cut everything down a little bit. If it was a very, very large rose, I'd do it with a hedge trimmer, but I'm just doing it with the shears. So I'm just getting some of the bulk off right now. Eventually, right here is the bud union where the main trunk is attached to the base, and I'm going to be something like 12 to 24 inches above that. So this is just bulk that I'm pruning off right now. Some of it you almost hate to because there's nice new growth on here. That unfortunately is not usable. So you can see on this there are things that are going out several feet to the side. I'll just reduce it down in size so we can see what we're doing here. And as I start to do that, I start to cut away some of the things growing to the inside again so I can see what I'm doing. And eventually I'll want to prune everything properly to the outside. When I say prune properly, I'll show you this on a short piece that I'll cut off right now. When I say prune properly, this would be a good example of something that's not pruned for the final cut. You can see above every leaf here and under every leaf, here, 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 there are buds, dormant buds. When I pull off the leaf, there's another bud right underneath, right here. What I'm going to be doing is cutting above that, about 1/4 inch, with the sharp shears, like that. The bottom should be close to the bud. The bud will be pointing in the direction that new growth will happen in the spring. And so what I'm trying to do is shape the rose and make it grow outward so that it's not closed in the middle with crossing canes and lack of air circulation and light. What that does is it keeps you from getting good fungus control and insect control. The air and light helps on disease control. So I'm going to cut off a few more of these inward facing branches or canes. I'm going to cut off a little of the outside growth. Again, this is not proper pruning, this is just getting rid of some of the bulk. I'm just throwing it on the ground here. You might notice there's some things on some of these leaves that don't look very good. I had a roof repaired and there's a lot of dust and debris that came down off of the roof when I had the roof redone. So, you're starting to see the structure here. Eventually, during dormant pruning, you want to pull off all the leaves. At this time of year, for me, that's a pretty big job since I have a few hundred roses. But let's get a few of these out of the way so you can see what's happening. You can start to see the structure. And I think I'll prune away a couple of these from the adjoining plants so you can see what's going on over here, even though that isn't the plant I'm intending to prune today, just so I can illustrate this. You can start to see there are quite a few different canes coming out of this bud union. Now it's not one bud union, it's actually two. There's one over on this side going that way, and there's one over on this side going this way. What you can think of them as is antlers, like on a moose. The antlers you want to have open in the middle, and the growth you want to have going to the outside. So let me do that. I'll continue to prune away a few things that are smaller and not the most vigorous. You're going to leave just a few of the main canes and point them to the outside. Now, I'm going to remove a few leaves, so we're going to interrupt here. Going to interrupt here, and then pick it up after I've stripped the leaves off. Okay, now that we've stripped the leaves and put them eventually in the green bin, right now they're not yet, I'll take the last leaf off here. And what I'm going to do now is start to shape the plant. I know that eventually I want it to be sort of like this shape. And I want it maybe 12 inches to maybe a little more. Like this one is pretty tall. It's like 3 feet tall. It's got a cut where it was pruned earlier this year. But this is all new green growth. In the back you can see some of the older scaly growth. And there's one here that looks almost dead. And I'm just going to take that whole thing off. What I'll use for that is a slightly larger shears that should be able to get this just very nicely. And that takes that older, dead, scaly growth off. When you want to rejuvenate a rose, look for the new growth, keep that, and take off some of the old woody growth, and you get a much more vigorous plant. Now the other thing I'm going to do is shorten this. I'm going to cut it back to a bud that faces out. You'll find buds all around a plant like this, or a cane like this, and I'm going to pick one that's going out. There happens to be one here that goes out this way. That's a good direction for it to grow, so I'll cut above that growth and shorten it. It doesn't have to be completely uniform, you just want it to be a nice shape. I'm going to cut over here, leave some branching, but I will take off some of these others, especially any that might cross. Cut to a outward facing bud in each of these cases, and there. So that's how you do it here. I'm going to then take another nice, relatively new growth, and probably this year's growth, and cut above it here. So what I'm doing is shaping this to be a rounded bush. So.
Sure you don't want more video of you pulling those off?
No. It'll take too long. What I'm trying to do.
3.
This has a few issues that are not serious, and you can correct them. Like this is crossing one with another, Here's another crossing cane, or close to it. This one I can just cut out. But this one is a little more difficult. I can do a couple of things though, and one of them is to take some of this waste material, cut a little notch in it, cut the bottom flat. This may be too long right now. And what you can do is you can attach it on a thorn and use this as a prop to open things up. I'm going to try it here. I think this is way too close. Yeah, it's pretty close. So I'm going to cut it again. Easier to cut it twice than it is to put things back on. And then I'm going to, put a prop on like that. And what happens is I've cut out the tight space here and moved the one cane out a little further. And that'll allow more air and light, and what you're ending up with is more open material in the middle. Okay? Okay, now I'm going to clean up the bud union here a little bit. You can see there's old bark. There are a few stubs from prior pruning that I should have taken off last year, but I didn't. I'm cleaning it up. You can actually use a wire brush on these, and you might get some additional what are called basal breaks, meaning from the bud union or the base here, you get new growth out of this area. Allowing it to get more sunlight on it helps. Having things like growth promoters like alfalfa, which has a natural growth stimulant called tricontinol, and that is something that can actually help on basal breaks. But you can see it's now maybe a little lopsided, but about 12 inches, maybe a little up to 18 inches off to the side. Some of the old growth removed, and it's more or less symmetrical. That's what you want when you're done with a rose that is going to be a standard tree rose. Thank you. This is a set of 2 climbing roses. These happen to be New Dawn. They're fairly old. They've been in these large pots in these locations for over 15 years. They go up and over an arch. And the idea is, from ones that are on this side, you want it to go up, over, and down. And you just prune away a lot of the material that is extra, but keep the nice limber canes going up, over, and down. You want the ends to go down, and that keeps growth coming up all along, and it'll bloom all along this whole area.